Revenge.
Hey everyone, welcome back for some brand new content about the TV series that keeps hitting new lows, even in the middle of the apocalypse, The Walking Dead. Warning, beyond this point there are spoilers for people who are not up to date on The Walking Dead television series and the comic books. This video will examine a statement made by new showrunner Angela Kang that seems to confirm Rick will in fact survive his last episode of the season, which has now officially been confirmed by AMC as episode 5.
They hope you come back real soon.
We will also cover other news and our theories for what's to come, including a possible Rick and Michonne bundle of joy. We will recap last week's episode and break down the trailer and sneak peeks of next week's episode, where it appears we will see all the tensions that have been building up between the community leaders finally escalate into a full-on mutiny. First thing we're going to cover is the event that everyone's been talking about, Rick Grimes' inevitable exit from the show, and all the mystery surrounding this event. In a recent interview with BBC, when asked about Andrew Lincoln's departure, Angela Kang stated, "He is definitely out of the show this season. The intention is this is his exit from the show." However, she went on to say, "But who knows what time may bring. We always love our Andrew, so since we've got some time jumps, you never know what might happen." In our minds, this is a confirmation that Rick will not die on screen, leaving open the possibility of an eventual return.
You're running out of time.
We know Lincoln's returning as a director in Season 10, but referencing the time jumps is evidence that Rick Grimes could possibly one day return in the future of the Walking Dead universe and not just a flashback. If that's the case, then he can't possibly die on screen in Episode 5 unless Kang is flat out lying to us. No cast or crew have confirmed Rick actually dies, but they have in fact made statements that would contradict an actual death. Peyton's statement was more vague, and although an insider, he didn't have access to all the knowledge that the showrunner does. We understand that this statement doesn't guarantee his return or that he'll return to the Walking Dead series, but it guarantees it's still possible as long as Kang is telling the truth. He could also possibly appear in a new spin-off series, Fear the Walking Dead, or even a Walking Dead movie in the future. It will probably be years before we find out his true fate, if ever, but at least for now, we're almost positive that Officer Friendly won't die in Episode 5. This may anger a lot of fans who want closure, and is pretty much another dumpster gate, but Rick has always been the heart and soul of this show, and overall, we're glad that there could still be an apocalyptic zombie-riddled future with him in it. Next up, we'd like to talk about some special guests that will appear in Rick's last episode. Shane actor John Barenthal's appearance has been somewhat common knowledge for some time now, but during New York Comic Con, Angela Kang confirmed that Sonequa Martin Green, who played Sasha, will also appear in the episode alongside HERSHEL actor Scott Wilson, who recently passed, which saddens us, but we're excited to see this great performer's final scene play out. The question here is, why just these 3 actors? What about Carl?
Should be there.
When the synopsis for Episode 7 was released last week, the first half of it really had us guessing. Carol seeks out an old friend living alone in a wilderness teeming with walkers. We know there will be a second time jump, and we know that Carol will survive, but we weren't sure who she would be seeking out. Given the new footage we've seen in next week's episode's trailer, along with a picture taken from the set of Episode 7, we believe it will be Daryl. We know Daryl ends up fighting with Rick, and we think it's possible he may be at least partially responsible for Rick's disappearance, or at least blame himself. We believe Daryl will disappear right before the second time jump, and Carol will eventually go out to find him. This photo taken during the production of Episode 7 shows long-haired Carol with an older Henry and even a new pet heading somewhere out in the country with Daryl on the lead in his motorcycle. We believe this is after they find him and convince him to come back. It's possible Daryl is also on this rescue mission, but we think he'd be mentioned in the episode description if that was the case. The real question here is, whose dog is that, and does he sniff out walkers? Before we get into this week's episode recap and next week's trailer and sneak peek breakdown, we wanted to cover one last piece of news. Although this isn't confirmed, a casting call was put out using an email sometimes associated with casting for The Walking Dead. They were looking for a 15 to 18-year-old girl that looked like the younger girl in this photo here. This could mean that either Carol and Ezekiel or Rick and Michonne end up having a daughter. The fact that they want an even older version of this daughter means there could possibly be a third time jump, or this is just a vision of the future like Rick had in Season 8. If this is in fact Michonne and Rick's daughter, this could be setting up a storyline from the comics where Michonne loses her daughter and is eventually reunited with her. It's way too early to tell, and it could just be for some sort of flashback sequence with an existing character, but we thought this news was worth sharing as we believe without Rick and Maggie, Michonne will fill a much bigger role in the series. Now for our recap of this week's episode. After a promising episode 2, we were a little disappointed with the new lowest rated episode in the series titled Warning Signs, but we still saw a lot of good in there. One of the highlights of this episode was seeing a rare moment of peace with Rick, Michonne, and Judith having some much-needed family time. The shot of the handprints Carl made with Judith before he died was a nice Easter egg and a great way to set the tone. Rick and Michonne have a big talk about having a baby, and based off the casting posting we covered earlier in our video, we just might get to see Michonne become a mom once again. The question of the disappearing saviors comes back up and heavily influences this episode, although it was disappointing for us that the mystery was solved with no real effort so quickly after it had begun. The near brawl about Justin's disappearance falls short in our opinion, as it was teased so hard and only a few punches were thrown. Daryl and Jadis both took offense to Rick's line of questioning, which would prove to have repercussions on both ends, although he was just doing what any cop would do.
You stayed all night?
We finally got some more information about the mysterious helicopter we've seen multiple times now, but it's left us with more questions than answers. We know Rick and Negan are considered A's, and Father Gabriel used to be a B, but what do A's and B's mean? What would their fate be? This could be a setup for the Commonwealth community, who judge their new residents to determine where they fit in their society. Or it could be something much darker involving slavery and cannibalism. We just don't know until we find out more info about this mysterious outside community who has a helicopter and enough fuel to just watch the other communities. Unfortunately, Jadis and Gabriel's romance was short-lived. It seems like once a garbage person, always a garbage person. We also got to see the heavily teased Jed and Carol confrontation play out with a surprising ending as Rick sends them back to camp alive. Finding out Oceanside was exacting their vengeance after seeing Maggie hang Gregory felt a little forced, although after finding out Arat murdered a young boy, we agree with the decision to allow Arat to be executed.
It's not like that anymore, okay? I'm one of you now.
The episode ends with Rick watching his bridge plans fall apart while Maggie and Daryl finally decide to go see Negan, and we all know what that means. Overall, this episode was good, but lacked the punch of episode 2. Hopefully next week's installment picks up some steam leading into Rick's final episode. Next week's episode is titled The Obliged, and the synopsis reads, Rick's vision of a civilized future is threatened by a sudden reckoning with past sins that remain unavenged and unforgiven. This is clearly describing the Negan situation. In the opening minutes of the episode, we see a day in the life of Michonne. It's obvious how hard she works towards keeping the community civilized, although it must be stressful work, as clearly she needs to blow off a lot of steam at night. This sneak peek shows Michonne talking to Negan from his jail cell. He knows Michonne won't go for the mind games that usually get under Rick's skin, so he flat out threatens to starve himself to death unless she talks to him. This is a side of Negan we haven't seen before, and his desperation gives his character new depth, which may change how he acts when he finally escapes. The next sneak peek, we see Jesus approach a determined Maggie with a new letter from Georgie. Maggie puts off the letter and decides to start her mission, but Jesus is no fool and realizes where she's going. Jesus has been on her side the entire time, but he doesn't agree with her here, which becomes clear in the Talking Dead sneak peek, which lets us know that Jesus warned Jerry to tell Rick Maggie was heading to Alexandria. Rick is alarmed immediately, given the fact she hadn't been there in over a year, and realizes she must be going there to kill Negan. We see Daryl watching Rick in the background and know that he's going to do whatever it takes to stop Rick from stopping Maggie. It's also clear that the scout Rick radios is on Maggie's side as well. We don't know how deep this rift and mutiny goes, but at this point it's obviously spread beyond the leadership. Finally, we're going to break down the trailer for next week's episode. The first shot we see is Maggie overlooking the hilltop, contemplating her betrayal of Rick. Next, we see several shots from the sneak peek of her packing a crowbar to most likely break Negan's cell open. This next shot appears to be Jesus following Maggie. Is he going along to try to convince her and stop her at the last moment, or is he playing along until Rick can bring this conflict to a peaceful end? This next shot shows us the bridge project is once again in jeopardy, and Rick asks Eugene for a solution, but it's unclear if the bridge is going to make it. Here we see Daryl taking Rick for a ride. We believe Daryl offered to take him to Alexandria and actually plans on sabotaging Rick's attempt to make it home. After that, we see Jadis with an imprisoned Father Gabriel and a creepy-looking walker attached to a hand truck. We know Gabriel will survive, but the purpose of this scene is a mystery to us. Next, we see a shot that's been teased for some time of Daryl aggressively dropping his bike and almost definitely confronting Rick about Operation Kill Negan. Here we see Daryl slap the walkie out of Rick's hand, then push him, and at some point they roll down into a pit. Although the next shot shows Rick hitting the ground alone, so we're not sure how exactly this fight plays out. Here we see Michonne look concerned and towards her sword, although we don't know if this is due to some warning or just her amazing intuition. Next, we see a shot from one of the sneak peeks of Michonne approaching Negan in his cell. Here we see more Savior action, and Jed actually got himself a gun as he and Saviors with hand weapons approach Carol looking for another fight. We're not sure this ends well for the remaining Saviors. In the final shots, we see Rick trying to climb out of the pit he's in, but falling walkers are getting in his way. Will he be bitten here? We don't think so, but you just never know with this show. If Rick actually does die, it means Angela Kang has lied to us all, and we believe fans will never trust any news that ever comes from the Walking Dead crew or cast again. We hope this isn't the case, and Kang can continue to make the show better than it has been for the last few seasons. Thanks so much for watching our videos, everyone. We'll be on the lookout for more news to create our new theories and evidence to update our old ones, but in the meantime, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Turn on the notifications button for our channel so you can see our next video as soon as it comes out, and don't forget to subscribe.